Hi, greetings. Out with the dog at the dunes. And it's May 1st, so spring is back on the way. I'm really glad how much precipitation we got this winter and are continuing to get now because it's been very droughty. Things are getting real crispy out here. There's a lot of logging, and if you take the drone up all the way around everywhere, it's just like demolished forests with just crispy, dying, decaying matter on the ground. So, God willing, the fires aren't too bad this year. Might have to do some like weather work or something. So I've been working with this silicic acid compound, and what this thing is it's a hydrated form of silicon, you can say. So it's basically water soluble silicon, and it's something that the body can take up like really, really tremendously easily and reconfigure in a way that it helps to like restore tissues like very very well. So I discovered this stuff through one of Steve Falconer's videos that was about biochemistry, and started looking into it, and I tried to make it, and what I ended up with was silicon hydroxide, and I thought that it was silicic acid at the time, but what I didn't realize is that it loses its fire really quickly. So the silicic acid molecule is basically a swastika, and what makes that so fascinating is that, like, you may be aware, the swastika is this form that takes like it's through the perennial positions around Polaris. So Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, they both, at the 4 points of the year, if you put those all together, they make a swastika. And what's interesting is that you make quartz from swastika, from silicic acid, and the name for crystal in Sanskrit is sphatika. So we're getting this. We get these clues of like the pre-language grabbling of how they understood like the above and the below, and kind of like that there is this pattern, that manifests at the subtle level of just pure energy, pure mind, and how this manifests in the world, in the material as well. So this should not be spooky, because like it's all coded into our language. We've just kind of like forgotten like the patterns that underlie the way the world works. And we have this ideology that's implanted through our idea of history, that language is arbitrary and it doesn't have an objective, there's no objectivity in the way it traces back. So this is why I'm very critical of history, because it installs an operating system in the mind. And what that does is that it allows the devil into the details, and it creates disorientation. So we grab onto things that allow us to navigate the world, with energy and power, like things that give us the ability to navigate and to have charisma, to have riz in the world. These are the things that we navigate to. But if these orientations are given to us with a specific agenda to make us think in a certain way, then we zoom in, things become incoherent, so we don't see greater, we lose a greater scope of how coherent the world actually is. And if you look if you look at every single kind of like modern conception, from, you know, the way that the body works, just this chemical, this particulation of things that are just doing their thing, and you're basically reading Sanskrit or something like that, cuneiform. Like, you have to be so highly initiated to understand like what they're talking about, and then you just end up kind of deferring to authority, which is the clergy. That's how it works. And they do the same thing with astrophysics. These things are all theoretical, and they are all explicitly designed to confuse and to keep a carrot on the stick at all times of being able to actually understand, to comprehend how our cosmos works and how we work within it and how we navigate it. So, like, the more you look at it, or the more you're able to zoom out, the more you see that there are consistent patterns. There's our patter, you know, like, and these things, they translate. And so the greater the concept of the pattern of how things play out on in the below and the above, the more headroom you got, literally. Like, the more room to expand you have. And so, you know, in like any kind of artistic pursuits, it's understood that you need a container, you need limits in order to like work within. You know, it's why like people get so messed up a lot of the time when they get the whole Leviathan beast behind them with all the record labels and stuff, just, you know, shoveling money at them to enslave them into vice, to these worldly things. And then you got a guy like Jack White or something from the White Stripes who talks about, like, he's got that song Little Room 25 years ago or something. When you're in your little room and you're working on something good, but if it's really good, you're going to need a bigger room. And if you, when you're in your bigger room, you might not know what to do. You might have to think of how you got started sitting in your little room, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, that whole thing. So you need limitations to be able to operate, and to to make a map, you know, like you can't make you don't know where to go if it's just infinite and indiscriminate, you know. And so, like, that's where our cosmology is designed to do in our mind. The way that the ancients viewed things, that we still have a thread to, you know, we can still deduce how it was, but we just need the right eyes and ears to see and hear. They viewed things that there was one pattern, and it manifested in discrimination in all of these different ways. And through this pattern, they recognized that man, the form of man, with our thumb, like our opposable thumbs, and we're upright. And we have such a high limit for energy within the body. We have such a high level to be able to create in an extremely sophisticated and discriminative way, you know, through our senses, in ways that we don't even have an idea about how, like, the potential of what, you know, is available to this form, to the form of man. Like, in the ancient sacred alphabets, you have like the Tav principle, or the Omega principle, and this is the man. This is like the principle of man, is that it is like, just like in the Bible and the creation story, man was created on the sixth day. He was like the final form. It was like the final form of the law of the cosmos contained within our form, within our code. So it's very much like we start at the kind of like, we start at the end, And we're moving back into like our whole kind of hero's journey seems a lot more like it's about moving through all of the extrapolated forms towards God. Like we are trying to conform, what you would call your purpose, your telos, in life, is to be able to conform yourself through your will and through your mind, your spirit, with the metabolism, the soul. The soul is the metabolism. Through this, like applying all these things to become balanced and coherent for more levels, for sustaining in balance more levels of energy, to be able to move closer to God, basically, to reflect like God's grace and glory by our own free will, through the application and the discipline of the energy that we have within us. Always learning how to apply more balance to sustain that virtue, like virtue as a neutral term of energy, like VIR, like Ohm's law or whatever. Like it's not a mistake that they pattern these things through the language to keep a thread to where we are. And so this whole thing with the silicic acid, how it has this kind of like above and below coherent pattern to it, that like when we look at have you seen that comic where it's like the dude and he's like these fat cats can't tell me what to do. He's got the shoe desiccant silica gel, and he eats it, and then he wakes up and he's like, there's people standing by, and he's like, "Congratulations, sir, you're out of the matrix." And it's funny. I was like, who wrote this? It's like they were like, whether they knew or not, they were plugging into a certain circuit that I feel like has been waiting to be tapped now, because like we know, just like with borax, also something very interesting there. So like with the borax, they have basically put what you call like a moratorium. They put a stop to study, or they've tried to put roadblocks up with study on like how beneficial this is for the body. And in like the medical testing, what they say is that like you take in these spring waters that are highly rich with silicic acid, the H4SiO4 or HSiO4. Yeah, there's a few different configurations for silicic acid, the electrochemical formula or whatever. So specifically, there's this guy, Christopher Exley, I believe his name is, and he did all this work showing that when you drink these silica-rich spring waters, like silicic acid, water-soluble, like hydrated silica that is like highly bioavailable, what you find is that you end up passing all of these pollutions, what they call miasmas. Yeah, all these heavy metals. And when I was looking this up, apparently it also removes like all kinds of different pollutions, like all these heavy metals, all of these like pharmaceuticals and stuff that get stuck in the body. All of these things, they end up passing out of the body. And I think that there's a big secret to this stuff that is almost like forbidden to be allowed to talk about. And that is the transmutational nature of the body, that the body is able to reformat elements, like the way that elements actually work, which is actually very scientific, and it just contradicts like everything within the modern scientific paradigm. There's a guy, Konstantin Mile, who speaks about this a lot, and it's just the previous understanding of how elements, they grow more like onions, sort of like in this way, than this series of particles, always with the particles, right? So the whole idea of so what it seems like that is not discussed enough about like the detoxifying effect of different stuff like borax and silicic acid and various other kind of suppressed compounds, is that they're filling the gaps in the body, which allows the body to push these things out. So in traditional Chinese medicine, what they call that, just medicine of the old world, right? You have this concept of wind. And so if you have gaps in the tissues, then wind gets in and it drains your energy. Basically, it's like if you're on a windy day, if you're out on a windy day, you feel tired, after being in the wind for a while. And it's because like literally like energy, your life force is being pulled away. There's force, there's this force against you that is pushing your energy out. And so you end up super tired. It's not because of the physical force of the wind. It's because, like what they say in normie science, the wind is stealing electrons from the body. So in some of the old sacred writs, what they say is that it's like, the real goal that you're trying to get to is for there to be nowhere for death to enter in. And so this is kind of edging into the new paradigm with what we're starting to understand about parasites and fungal miasmas, same thing, wigglers and biofilms, these fungal films that build up in the body, is that they're allowed to be there because the tissues are weak, so that there's like a low voltage within the tissues that cause like the lower voltage, the lower vril, virtue, ki, prana, life force, whatever you want to call it. When there's lower amounts of that, and it applies just as much to fruits and veggies and meat and all these things, when the life force isn't there, then there's food. Basically, things can show up to eat it. So we give permission for things to enter with the lack of life force that's available. So the whole thing, like within terrain theory and stuff, right? Like the dialogue gets kind of a little bit too stuck. It has kind of like a gate, in saying, well, yes, these things. You got this one camp now saying, no, parasites are good because they clean the body and stuff, right? Parasites are not good because they poop in you, and for all we know, they're designed there's all kinds of parasites that are designed. But the true thing is that if they have a right to be there, then we are creating a negative space. So this ties into the ancient knowledge, or like the ancient understanding of nobility, and why you would call a metal noble and a person noble. What's the what's the correspondence there? What's the principle when you compare these two things? What is the quality? What's the principle that you can abstract through looking at both of these? And on the dense level with metal, like it's more conductive, and it's a denser, coherent material. So like with silver and gold and stuff like this that are highly conductive materials, Like an ounce of silver, for example, can be hammered out to the size of a football field, right? And us as humans, as like the supreme container of the law, you know, in the way that the ancients saw it, we hold the potential of everything. We're way beyond that. our our potential is to the Aleph. Like, and this isn't saying like, you know, reaching for more power, because reaching for more power than what you can sustain in balance, because that is, in my opinion, the whole reason why we are in this curse now, is creating so much incoherence in the world, in its time and place, that personally I believe that has been erased from our collective memory. And so, like, when I'm walking through the forest here, when I'm walking down the logging paths, you know, I'm in great balance here. You know, like I wish everything well. I want to see everything thrive, and I want my dog to be tired out so she's not, you know, going nuts in the house. These things are in balance, you know, and it's just about maintaining that balance at a higher level. So when I'm saying like we have the potential for the full length of for the full breadth of the law, by design, this is within our design. It's all about like sustaining in balance that power, not reaching out of desire for a higher level of energy, because like lottery winners is the perfect example. Lottery winners get a huge influx of energy, and then you hear what happens to them 6 months later, and they're in the gutter. They're like worse off in a number of ways. Their life is destroyed a lot of the time because of this desire, this huge influx of energy. But the point is that our potential is there, or whatever, and we've very much like lost our map to, you know, how to actually sustain, how to build, how to grow in accordance to balance. And so this entire modern medical paradigm that we've been raised in has been all about basically like as much death as they can get people to accept, in as much negative space for death that people can accept and go through like a certain level of life, as much as they can program the operating system of the world that we live in to convince us to have this negative vacuum for death within us. That has been the modus operandi of the entire Leviathan program. And the silicic acid and like the borax and these kinds of things that work on the true nature of the body, being able to metabolically sustain more energy, filling in the gaps within the tissues themselves to prevent like these miasmas, and to keep the pollutions from getting a foothold. You know, they do it to us from like the day we're born, you know, like with the vitamin K shots, all these shots, and then all of the stuff that we inherit from our parents, both spiritually and physically, biologically, with the miasmas, like fungus, and these kinds of things. So it's like we've been pushed to this extent, and then COVID was like the tipping point where we had to wake up and look for the truth, because, you know, the devil was being so demanding, like in that whole paradigm. And so we all had this choice to, like, you know, basically what they would call basically what they would call choosing the social mind and choosing to grasp on to like our place in the world, you know, and all tied in with all of like the social justice stuff, or to search for the truth and to understand that it is actually in our true self-interest to pursue the truth and to hold on to it, to hold on to the true logos, like the word. This is what in the Bible God is it's such a coherent and high divine form of logic that synthesizes and brings coherence to everything, where everything has a place within it, and everything is good in its appropriate place, basically. So this is a great definition of like the nature of good and evil, is that like everything in creation is good in its right place. And when you're thinking in terms of principalities, anyway, so filling in the gaps in the body allows you to see with more depth and to feel at more depth, not like emotionally, but like virtuously, to be able to have greater command over your energy levels, and for them to be consistent, and for you also emotionally to have less live wires in the system, and let things pass for like the sake of something better, like above. So anyway, that is my spiel for today. I'm just back home, so hope everybody has a great day and feeling good.